They were the first program years ago to go fully online. And about 4 or 5 years ago, we sort of doubled down on that too and really refocused our efforts and thought about quality and all the different types of things that you do to make for an excellent program. We have twice a year, we do professional development for ourselves where we all come, full-time faculty and all of our adjuncts, some of whom are here. And we discuss how we teach, we collaborate, and we calibrate on our teaching to make sure that we're having similar standards and so on. One of our things that we've done as a group is to have a short strategic mission document. And one of our main mission statement is that we transform leaders. We want our students to feel like they've been transformed, not just they've been through a licensure program. I'm not exactly sure everybody's experience here in the audience with online. What we do with online is it's completely face-to-face, live, real-time, using Adobe Connect. If we do any asynchronous, it's sort of on the edges. And our classes are really face-to-face classes. They just happen to be over the internet.
Prior to working at ODU, my experience with an online class was an exchange of ideas and concepts electronically. I knew my class was going to be live and I would be able to see the students, but that first class that I taught was a real eye-opener. I looked down at my screen and I could see these students looking back at me. And I began to talk, and I realized very quickly that I could bore them. I could see the look on their face that I had to do something different. But I also realized that I could make them laugh, and I also realized that I could make them care about the information that I was going to share with them. And so I had to, rethink my entire approach from just sharing a PowerPoint and talking through some key points that I wanted to get across, and I had to get them interacting with each other. I had to get them telling stories. I couldn't be the only one delivering that information. So essentially what I did is I went back and rethought how I was going to approach this class, and I imagined through my planning process that my students were going to be sitting right in front of me. And that's the best way to do it. If you think about what you expect of classroom teachers, what we know about how students best learn at any age, what we know about how adults learn, I just approached the class with that same method. I wanted to make sure that the information that I was going to share was going to be relevant to them, that we incorporated some collaborative activities, and that me as the instructor, I wasn't doing all of the talking and sharing. You can still develop those relationships through the online environment. There are some little tricks that have come along the way. We're all trained as teachers, as classroom teachers originally. And as classroom teachers, we were always taught that it's really important to give wait time after you throw a prompt or a question out. I found that in an online environment, that's not such a great idea because sometimes they'll try to outweight you. So I try to let them know early on that we're not going to have wait time. You need to be engaged in a discussion because I'm just going to call on you. And I think it's a lot more lively that way and entertaining it. And, maybe a little bit of pressure, but that's okay. A little bit of pressure is okay. It helps people learn better, and it kind of expands their horizons. We teach leadership. And so one of the little tricks that I picked up from working with them is when we put people in groups, we always appoint a facilitator or a leader. So that person is responsible when they come back to share, where they're either going to synthesize the ideas that were discussed in the group, or they can appoint someone in the group to be that person. And then at the end, after, we do this through the first few weeks, we give the opportunity for the other students to give the facilitator in the group feedback about their facilitation style. And that kind of starts to get them in the role of a leader because they have to practice what they're preparing to do.
And so I treat my online environment just as I treat that face-to-face, and that's how I plan. I do a lot of storyboarding. So I actually have a couple different documents that I use. I have a public agenda that I will eventually disseminate to students, and so that's the guide. But I also have a facilitator's version of my agenda, and so I'll have two columns for the students, one that's time-stamped. And I always tell my students it's just a suggestion, and if we go off in a teachable moment, we may not always follow exactly the timestamp, but they at least know the path that we're going for the evening. And so I timestamp it. I have the objectives and activities. Sometimes on the agenda itself, I will list out specific directions for the activities. Other times I'll load it onto the Connect version itself, just in case, I want some anticipation of the activity. But then I also have the instructor version as well, and these are the notes that I have to myself. And I'll do this in a face-to-face or an online class, but I will say, I think it requires a lot more planning time in the Adobe Connect environment, because you need to make sure that all of your materials are prepared in advance. And so I'll have those talking points to myself. In the instructor notes, I'll have the types of materials. One of the things I love is that you can pull up videos, we can have PowerPoints, I can put students into small room breakouts, we can bring in guest speakers. And so I use those documents to help inform the type of activities I'm going to be doing in classes. I also always keep in mind that our adult learners need a lot of engagement. If you're talking for more than 5 or 10 minutes, you're going to lose people. And so we have a loose rule in our program that we have to have at least 2 breakouts per class period, because it's about 2 hours and 40 minutes. And so if you're just in the main room for that long, I mean, probably you all are listening to me now going, oh, we'd like to hear from someone else. It's the same type of idea, making sure that everybody is engaged.
And we use a sports analogy for that. We say you can come to my class once a week and you'll get better. But the people who want to get great at what they do are going to practice every day. So this is how you practice every day, and then you come back to the class and you really start developing your skill.
When planning my lessons, I think about 2 things. I think about engagement and I think about relevancy. Those are 2 things that are the most important. And I want to make sure at the beginning of the course or the beginning of the class, each student understands what the objective is, they know what our plan is, but I also they need to know what the closure is going to be and what our next steps are going to be for the next class. I found that that's very important.
So I just wanted to also touch on the collaborative nature of our program related to planning. We may have 3, 4, 5 sections of the same course being taught in one semester. They may be cohort classes, they may be regular campus classes. But one of the things that we also do related to planning is we have collaborative planning, both at the start of the semester and across the course of the semester, across all of those sections. So all of the syllabi have the same template, have the same format. It doesn't say that you cannot deviate perhaps and teach something out of sequence based upon your students and your own instructional needs. But in this way, we share our instructional strategies, and you may find that a strategy in someone's class works well for you and you want to incorporate it. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I know Dr. Smith and Dr. Bird will get together on a Sunday afternoon and plan out the next class. And we do that frequently with all of our courses in the licensure program. And that way we really can meet all of our students' needs. And sometimes we may, if we have a guest speaker and we're teaching the same class on the same night, all of our students, 40 students, can come into that one Adobe Connect classroom and be able to learn from that same individual on that same night.
Even though the internship course that I teach is one of the very last classes, I don't just assume that everyone knows each other because they've been through the program together. And plus, that gives me a time or a chance to get to know them. So through those introductions, I'll have a list up on the screen of things that I need to know about you. And then one thing I always ask them is, tell me something that's not related to education. Just tell me something about yourself. And then what I always try to do is surprise them around, maybe I'd say next to the last class or the last class of each semester. I'll repeat back to them what that one thing was. And that sits very well with them because they realize that even though I may not have said anything to them about it the entire semester, I did not forget. And it was important to me that I got to know them as a person.